A warm welcome to Tanzania Today. Tanzania Today is the program that explores and discusses matters of national interest as Tanzania progresses and continues to be a key player in the region, in the continent, and beyond. I'm Nasa Kingu, and welcome to the program. This week, Tanzania Today is back to put into the right perspective Tanzania's bilateral ties with one of the key countries in Europe, that is Sweden, the bilateral ties that have evolved since Tanzania's independence, that is 1961. To discuss the Tanzania-Sweden relations and for now and beyond, in the studio, I'm joined by High Excellency Ambassador of Sweden to Tanzania, Charlotte Ozaki Macias. Welcome to Tanzania Today.
Thank you for having me.
You've been in Tanzania since 2022. Mm-hmm. I hope you're picking up on Swahili as well.
Kidogo.
Kidogo. That is very good. And as well in the studio is the Director General of TISEZA, Mr. Gilead Terry. Mr. Terry, welcome to Tanzania Today. I think we'll have a lot to discuss about the area of investments and also special economic zones as far as the issue of Tanzania and Sweden bilateral ties is actually concerned. And as well in the studio is Dr. Bravias Kayoza, a well-known economist, to me the top economic analyst in Tanzania. Welcome to Tanzania Today, Doctor.
Thank you, Kingu, for that nice introduction.
Great. Now, I think it's best to start with the person that can give us the perspective from outside of Tanzania, and that is you, Your Excellency. How would you assess Tanzania's evolving bilateral ties since Tanzania's independence, that is 1961? Now we're marking over 6 decades of bilateral ties. And of course, we understand this year, 2026, things are about to change. How do you assess the evolving bilateral ties that we have enjoyed over the years?
It's a long period, but I think there is one word, and that's friendship. We have been friends since your liberation efforts. Swedes came here as missionaries already in the 30s and the 20s. And as you might know, we never had any colonies. We've been supporting liberation movements in the whole region. And we've been here all the time through difficult periods that we have gone through, challenging periods in Tanzania. So friendship, that's my word.
And maybe I'll come back to you later on to discuss about what we should expect thereafter, post-August 31st, of course, when the shift will take place from development aid to trade investment and infrastructure partnership. Maybe now we should get some views from the economic analyst, Dr. Bravias Kayoza. How would you assess the bilateral ties with economic perspective, of course, the area of your expertise?
Yes, I think as she has made that strong introduction, our relations, the relations between two countries has been, of course, of friendship. I must start with that. But I think of more importance is what Mwalimu called that relationship. Sweden with the other Nordic countries, he called them concerned partners. And that is not a simple, I mean, a light word. When someone is a concerned partner, there are issues you expect from that particular person, and I think Sweden has been up to that task. Again, of course, Tanzania has kept credentials of being a good friend to many countries. And I think going forward, there shouldn't be anything that is altering that path that we have taken. And it is important also to note that the president, our current president, when he came into office, I think her maiden speech when she gave a speech at the United Nations General Assembly in 2021, she was crystal clear that Tanzania will actually work with the rest of the world. And of course, you remember at that time there was a call that Tanzania should find a way to link between the internal logic of our economy and the external logic of it. And she assured the world that this is how Tanzania will be doing. And of course, we have a lot to test to that for almost 5 years now. And I think going forward, that will be the way. Of course, we'll have to dissect some of the issues that are coming into place because of the happening, the geopolitics and geoeconomics of that. And I would be happy to share my views on that.
Maybe now let's turn to the man in charge of investments in Tanzania, Gilead Terry. Of course, we speak with numbers. We understand that. We understand Tanzania have decided to put economic diplomacy at the center of its foreign policy to attract more investors from various countries, and we understand how potential Sweden is. How are we doing in terms of trade between Tanzania and Sweden?
It's actually quite encouraging, and I would say the relationship, at least the economic relationship between the people of Sweden and people of Tanzania, we can look at it in three ways. First, we can look at the exchange of goods and services that happen between our two countries. Our trade levels are around $80–85 million a year at the moment. I think with a good year, this year is expected to be, we could reach $100 million of bilateral trade. A lot of it is import of Swedish technologies and Swedish goods, which I will talk about a little bit later as well. But we have good opportunity, and I think the people of Sweden, the government of Sweden has been also quite open to Tanzanians, sending not only coffee, copper and other products that are also needed by Swedish industries. So that's also a good space to start with when our people can do business with one another. I think the second part is in terms of investment. The people from Sweden have also been quite comfortable to come and invest in Tanzania. Our data, since we started tracking it in 1997, there is over $200 million of investment from the people of Sweden to Tanzania in different sectors, in almost all sectors. We see it in telecommunication, we see it in transportation, we see it in tourism. And that has been also quite consistent and also quite present. But the third part, which I also think it's quite important, is the effect that the investment from Sweden has had to within the people of Tanzania. So when you talk about Tanzania, you cannot ignore companies like Scania, which has made quite tremendous contribution to the lives of our people. I mean, for some of us who come from up country, the way we could travel to up country when we were much younger was through technologies and vehicles and buses that were made by Swedish technologies, and that's still superior even when we speak about it today. So the ties between the two people is quite strong, and I really expect that the economic ties will certainly continue to grow as our two economies keep growing as well.
Your Excellency, some of the viewers might really want to know. I think by now everybody does understand that there will be a shift that you have announced, and this directly has to do with the change in your foreign policy, and it has nothing to do with any political or economic development in the country. Shifting from a development aid to investment and trade coming 31st of August this year, 2026. Maybe some of the viewers might want to know how things will work thereafter, how this new relationship will create opportunities in trade, investment, infrastructure as well. As you understand, Tanzania right now is embarking on a lot of projects, infrastructural projects, as we're developing with our DIRA of 2050, but also the area of your expertise, green revolution.
Well, let me begin by talking about the phasing out of development cooperation, because I must say that the timing was a little bit unfortunate. The government decided 3 years ago to reduce development cooperation globally. So in December, when we announced that we are ending our development coop here in August, it came very close to the elections in Tanzania. And it's not, the decision to end development cooperation came out of domestic political reasoning in Sweden. So the government prioritizes now focusing more on security policy, meaning arms race actually, but also after the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, more and more of our aid has gone to Ukraine. So these are the reasons. So, we closed 3 embassies globally, and we're phasing out development coop in 5 countries. So Tanzania is just one of them, but we're remaining here, so it's only the bilateral development strategy that is phasing out. And of course, we were also concerned about the violence surrounding the elections. And that we have spoken about in many, at many occasions. So I'm happy to have the question because the transition into a new kind of strategic partnership is separate from, how we reacted to the elections. And I'd like to talk about this transition as a natural graduation. We've had bilateral development cooperation for more than 6 decades. And Tanzania is a low middle income country aiming at graduating also to become a middle income country. So it's very natural for our relationship to also evolve into more strategic economic ties. And as Mr. Terry said, our trade balance is okay, but the trade is too little. So that will be, a nice challenge for the embassy and also for Tanzania to see how we can increase trade. But in addition to trade, I also like to mention political dialogue, because there are many challenges in the world right now we haven't seen before. It could be climate change, could be population movements, geopolitical situation, really forcing all of us to talk, to have a dialogue, and not to stop the polarization, you know what I mean? So we need friends. So I also foresee a deeper political dialogue. When I look back at all these very fruitful years of development cooperation, I think, though, that we missed some opportunities because we were focused so much on development cooperation. And time is now to focus on trade, economic policy, as I mentioned, but also dialoguing on the challenges that we all are facing.
Dr. Bukayoza, as an economic analyst, I think Tanzania is geographically well positioned, of course, great potentials, even to Sweden as well. We understand how we have been cooperating with Sweden as well. How would you see things should go in terms of trade, investment, in other partnerships as well, as Sweden, of course, will be focusing more on those key areas comes August 31st, 2026?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. And actually, it's not a new thing. You know that many years, one of the philosophers we normally quote on laws, Montesquieu, when he wrote The Spirit of Laws, he argued that trade is an anchor of civilization and thereby an anchor of peace. And I think the more you strengthen trade, the more you consolidate the pillars that guide you in terms of building sustainable peace. But on the other thing, I think she has alluded to what are the challenges facing the globe and what is changing. And I have two issues to point out. Number one is that I think, yes, the world is moving towards relationships which are not only north-driven. And this means, as Alex Stubb, the president of Finland, has written a few months or a year ago, on the triangle of power, that you have the global west, you have the global south, you have the global east, and all these are players, or what he has called the tripolar. And now in that struggle, I think the world, it's not about the Nordic countries or Sweden. I think it is important to understand that we are in a world whereby people need to be valued as equal human beings. And when it comes to dialogues, political negotiations, and so forth and so on, they have to be anchored on those values. And you see, trade is the second issue when it comes to relations. You start with state-to-state relations that brings to policy relations among countries. And that is anchored, of course, as I've said, in what the famous economist I love most, Esler William from the United States of America, last year, inaugurated a book that what he called the violent saviors, the West conquest of the rest. And he has been categorical. He is categorical on that. Says we need to have initiatives all over the planet to fight poverty, but based on 3 principles. 1, sovereignty. 2, respect. And 3, sustainability. And this is what I see that should be at the center when it comes to economic diplomacy, when it comes to engagement between these countries. And I think it is true, as I've introduced Alex Stubb, because he has introduced something that he has called the hinge moment. The world is in the hinge moment, where he says, we are in the era of 1980s, 1945, and the era of between 1989 and thereabout, where hyperglobalization peaked in the 1990s. And in that space, it is only important that the relations, the relationships between one country and the other and another should be based on the 3 principles. Number 2, I want also to argue that this is not important to the South. It is also important to the North, important to the world. Because we see a person from the South, like we may be saying, now we want this relationship to be based on what I've said, that is bereft of cultural chauvinism, civilization theories that one person can dictate. Because if you say someone has not developed, so for him or her to develop, I need him or her to do 1, 2, 3, and if you don't, Estela is saying that you have now what they call development right of conquest. Now, conquest in terms of how you share resources and how you determine your way forward. And if we don't get this right to the North, now I'm talking to Ambassador, to the right, to the North, we'll be missing the point, because it is also happening at that stage. You see these great powers, there are also some are trying to stretch their hand or their hands into others' territories. And because of that, you see that those are perceived to be small countries. If you compare Sweden maybe with other big powers, and Sweden will be saying, no, this is not the way to go. And the moment you leave that space, you don't act on that, that will trickle down, or will its ways will be invigorated into the South. And because of information age and everything that is happening, you find that the South also will not feel comfortable to live in that particular world, and then you'll be in the world which is in chaos. And I say this, Kingu, not because of what is happening in the so-called developing countries. I think because what is happening at the center of the globe. And the moment we realize that we are living in a world that requires that particular change, the relations between Tanzania and Sweden, Tanzania and the rest of the world would be of mutual benefits to both sides.
Okay, let's talk to the Director General of Tanzania Investment and the Special Zones Authority. We understand Tanzania is about to embark on its development vision, DIRA 2050, coming July this year. So August we will be about as we will be working on the DIRA 2050. As what Doctor has said, the potentials of ensuring that we will have mutual benefits between Tanzania and Sweden. What plans are there in place to increase investments from Sweden?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd like to echo what Dr. Bravus mentioned and Her Excellency Ambassador mentioned as well. You know, this is not a unique shift from Sweden. I think other countries have also done the same. I think, you know, without mentioning names, you know, big country in North America has done something similar. Other countries in Europe have also transitioned from aid to trade. And This is also has been a key ask from developing countries for a long period of time, that we want equal trading partnerships that provide opportunities for African countries to sell not only raw commodities but even finished products in other countries. There's a big country in the east that has allowed, I think from August this year, entry of processed agricultural products into its markets as well. So it's a fundamental shift within the global economy, which is a welcome for our country. And on that note, I'd like to mention that Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan was way ahead of the curve on this one. When Her Excellency came into office in 2021, one of the first order of business of what she did was to reform the investment code within Tanzania. This investment act was there since 1997. It had not been touched. The first time it was amended was in the year 2022. The second time it was amended was in the year 2025. And the last amendment that happened in July last year was focused on one particular thing, creating a one-stop center, one-stop service for all investors that come into the country. But at the same time, the same institution that is responsible to welcome investors should be the same institutions that are responsible for supporting them export. You create special economic zone that become hubs for export. And this is the first time this has happened in our country. So it opens up a big opportunity for investors from Sweden that are looking for value all over the world to come into Tanzania, do value addition, and export their products to Sweden. Similarly, for Tanzanians that wish to explore these markets worldwide, there are these pockets of efficiencies that have been created by the government that would facilitate trade flows between our two countries. That's why I'm saying I'm quite confident we will reach $100 million mark this year, given the kind of vibrancy that we are seeing in the economy. And certainly the bilateral conversation between the business people and the people of Sweden and people of Tanzania is continuing to grow. There is a revamped airline in Air Tanzania at the moment, which will start taking skies to the European Union. And I think once these ties keep getting strengthened, we will see the results of it in investment. So we have the special economic zones ready for investors from Sweden and from all over the world. And we are paying particular attention to them to support as when they are here, but also to keep improving so that when they come here, they find the environment at least close to what they experience when they're back in Stockholm or other places in Sweden.
I'm sure, Your Excellency, you do agree, or with all these provisions that Tanzania has put in place, we will see more investors from Sweden coming to Tanzania, even after
We
August.
just had a meeting 2 weeks ago. I just want to say that investments is nothing new for us, even if we've been here mainly giving grants as development cooperation partners. We've always had Swedish businesses here, all our big companies in mining industry here. You mentioned Scania, and there are lots of big Swedish companies, but also smaller ones actually, in hospitality, in tourism, etc. Because of the people-to-people exchanges during such a long time, knowledge about Tanzania among Swedish businesses is quite good. And they come here because they see business opportunities. So I think it's not nothing radically new that is going to happen. It's more a transition and more focus from our side to support business development in Tanzania. And I'd like to maybe add to what you said, Doctor, that it is, from our perspective, it has always, our presence has been based on the benefit of Tanzania's development. When it comes to business opportunities, of course, business is business, and that's where businesses decide where to go. And I don't think there is a contradiction between finding synergies where development cooperation initiatives find business opportunities. I think SGR is an example of how that can work very nicely. It means that both sides are winning. It's a win-win solution.
Speaking about win-win solution, there will be a lot of Tanzanians, of course, watching this program, more than foreigners. Maybe some of them might wonder what opportunities are there in Sweden for Tanzanians that they could capitalize on, or areas of trade that also we could have Tanzanians doing business in Sweden.
What I really wish for is more agriculture products to be exported to Europe and to Sweden as well. Not only do you have the best products, I would love Swedes to have more access to coffee, cashew, mango avocados, rice. I mean, Mbeya rice has such quality, you know. So I see a lot of potential.
So you'd like to see more from Mbeya rice in Sweden?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's a tip for the farmers right there. Let's discuss
May I interrupt?
Yes.
Just adding also research cooperation, because we have a research cooperation since more than 50 years, right? With several universities. And we have a beautiful exchange between academics in Tanzania and Sweden. And it's not like we are contributing only. No, 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 no. Your research here is very essential for development of research in Sweden too. So it's really also a win-win, you know, cooperation.
Let's talk about the current direction and objectives of Tanzania's bilateral relations with Sweden. Maybe you'd like to share a word, especially in the middle of public differing interpretations of some of the issues that you need to explain over and over again, like this of the shift from development aid to investment and trade. Maybe you clear this one and once for all.
I thought I did. Well, I would say that in Sweden we appreciate a diversity of voices. And then in any political landscape, there will be actors wanting to benefit from one or another angle, right? And as I said in the beginning, we reacted strongly and we were concerned because of the violence during the elections. And that we handle separately. The ending of phasing out of development cooperation is something separate.
Which was announced 3 years ago, you said?
Well, they planned to, Swedish government has been reducing development cooperation globally for 3-4 years now. And that we were going to be phasing out our work here was not known until December, even for us. But the reasons were domestic, you know. So I think it's important to separate, because even if we were concerned about elections here, we wouldn't pull out. It's not that we've been friends of Tanzania. Also when Nyerere had problems and Tanzania was sanctioned by the international financial banks, we remained here. And so we don't pull out just because we don't agree, but we seek dialogue. So we're remaining here. We're phasing out development aid, but we will have a good presence at the embassy, which will work closely with you and many more.
Yeah. Doctor, maybe as an economic analyst, of course, this tells a lot about Tanzania's economic maturity as well. Seems we are ready actually now to stand pretty much on our own. What is your take on the issue of this differing interpretations of issues like this, that at times needs more and more clarification so that people get it right?
I think it's important, as I've always said, that economic policy is driven by policy communication, and when you talk about foreign policy and the way countries relate, it's important to put facts right, given time, given aspirations, given the questions even of sustainability of what you want to build in the future. So I think, yes, these are the issues that should be put in the right places and the right spaces for that, what I've said, for mutual benefits. As I have alluded earlier, and I strongly believe that even when we're engaging in those issues, it's important to understand well what the other side of the story. We shouldn't be driven by one side of the story. And I think, as Excellent has said, that should be at the center of whatever we are doing, not between Tanzania with Sweden, but between Tanzania with the rest of the world. And when we talk about economics in that sense, at least not economics, the science of economics has it, but the whole system of how economies operate, the economy in general, you don't get right the science of it, about trade, investments, and the rest, if the economy as a whole is not well set, and that includes one of the most important elements in that is how state-to-state relations work, and it is my submission that those should be the guiding principles. Moving forward, we're aspiring to build a $1 trillion economy by 2050. And I've been telling people that we have the laboratory of history, the laboratory of economics is history. Now, if you look at the 19 countries with $1 trillion GDP, according to World Bank and the United Nations, and if you are to say 21 according to IMF, three things are always a factor, always underlying in terms of how these countries have got there. One is that these countries chaperone their economies on the basis of equal trading systems, as Director Terry and Her Excellency have alluded. Number two is how do you respond to shocks when they happen? Because these shocks will always be there. And this has two sides. One is from the internal aspect, now this as a country, but the other thing is the people you deal with, your friends. How do they as well respond to these shocks so that whatever approach you take won't be a destabilizing factor going forward, but should be building a foundation on which you can solve your issues, but again also move forward. And lastly, either these countries have been able to integrate the world market without, at some point there are those issues of downgrading them and having unfair deals, unfair investment contracts. And it is at a certain point when these countries say, yeah, we will decide the way we want to handle our economies, and not that the rest of the world should decide that path. And I'm not saying it because I'm from the South. It is what also intellectuals, experts from the North have said. I think Professor Chang of the Cambridge University has written quite a number of these issues when he argued, for example, on the kicking away the ladder, that when these countries have developed and reached a certain stage, they must at no point, they must not at any point tell this country that no, you can't move this, while those countries developed through that path, and one of which is sovereignty that should be protected. And again, also, he at some point he wrote and said what he called bad Samaritans. That you see, yes, we are interrelated in this world, but you have to be very careful with the way you would like other people to think and act. And I think what we have experienced, I think, after 2008, of the financial crisis, which has not ended, of course, it has been moving from here to there. It is showing clearly from the political economy aspect that it is on those principles that the world would be able to have countries which will attain the sustainable development goals, to have these countries which will be flourishing, not in terms of GDP, but in terms of the livelihoods of the people. And what was fascinating, the last month, the World Bank gave out their 11,350 policy paper report, where they showed that almost 54 countries in the world, if they go with the pace they are doing their thing, it may take them 100 years to reach that level of development. And one of the things they argued is that institutions play an important role, but not institutions within those countries, but how these institutions do take their responsibilities when it comes to how they relate with the rest of the world. It's incumbent upon also those people that we are dealing with that we bring that. And I think this is the missing link. If one has to dissect the history of development in the South, and in Tanzania in particular, we find that one of the things we'll have to deal with, we'll have to face our friends and talk to them, and their friends, of course, telling us on those bases, is that there should be those aspects of true friendship, mutual respect, integrity in terms of how we are dealing with what we call economic diplomacy.
Let's just remind our viewers, in case they've just tuned in, this is Tanzania Today, the program that discusses matters of national interest, and today we are putting it in the right perspective, the bilateral ties of Tanzania with one of the key European countries, and that is Sweden. Bilateral ties that started since 1961, and that's why the ambassador of Sweden to Tanzania, Her Excellency Charlotta Ozaki Masias, is here in the studio, together with the man in charge of investments in Tanzania from TISEZA, Gilleteri, and economic analyst Bravius Kayoza as well. Maybe Gilleteri, back to you. Let's discuss a little bit. I know we'll get back to you regarding the issue of SGR. You have shown readiness to support through loan guarantees. We'll discuss that one as well. How Tanzania is positioned, the strategic position, of course, with infrastructure projects, major infrastructure projects, transformation that we have made. We have seen how port operations undergoing major transformations as well in terms of digitalization. We had several meetings, of course, recently, high-level meetings. President of Rwanda was here, President of Kenya was here. All these highlighting how the potentials that Tanzania has. How all these provisions and the geographical position of Tanzania, placing it as the most favorable place for Swedish investors. Her Excellency is here. We can convince her more.
Definitely. So the first thing that we have observed over the last 4 years of the current administration is the maturing manufacturing sector, which is quite encouraging. And the one area which I think could be of interest and certainly could be quite good for the people of Sweden is new technologies. So for example, now Tanzania is developing one of the largest solar factory, which I think when complete by end of this year will export close to $300 million worth of solar panels to the Western world. We expect most of this to go to North America as well as Europe. And we understand that the people of Sweden are quite mindful of the environment and quite open to clean technologies. And this could be opportunities where trade between our two countries and our two people keep flowing. The supply chains worldwide are moving, and they are finding good places to go set up and serve traditional big markets, European markets included. And we think Tanzania is poised to be one of the beneficiaries of that. And that's why we have seen quite significant increase in investment over the last couple of years. But the second thing is, Her Excellency mentioned, there's still big opportunity for Tanzanian investors to export processed products, agricultural products, to the European market, including to Sweden. And I think we'd like to use this opportunity to call for investors and business people who are open. Come to TISEZA, we'll help you figure out how to get accreditation. There are companies here that support companies to get accreditation to access the European market. It's a bit of hard work, but certainly that's why institutions like ours are here to help investors access those markets. So if you're exporting cashew, coffee, mangoes, avocado, as Her Excellency mentioned, come to us and we'll figure out how best to help and support your enterprise. But the third part is Tanzania as a country, how does it fit in this global puzzle of investment, trade, and business? And as you rightly said, we are fast becoming a hub for production for the East African and the African market, but also for the global market. So companies are coming to set in Tanzania, gaining advantage of not only the sort of growing human resource that's in the country, availability of land, improving efficiencies, production efficiencies, including port operations, since the sign-off of the DP World operations in Adani ports at the port of Dar es Salaam, but also the SGR. And what the SGR is doing for this country will last for hundreds of years. It is opening up production zones all across the central corridor. It is making it easier now to produce coffee in Bukoba and put it on the trucks and export it through the port of Dar es Salaam. Something that would have taken you weeks now will just take you the matter of days, partly also supported by the people of Sweden. So this is something that will cement not only the trade and investment between our two countries, but certainly the memory of the people of Tanzania and what the contribution that the people of Sweden have had to our economic growth and economic diversity. So that's a significant piece of investment, and we think will continue to make Tanzania a very important hub for the region, for Swedish companies, but also for Tanzanians looking to export to Sweden.
Your Excellency, the Director General of Tanzania Investments and Special Economic Zones Authority has spoken about the issue of HGR. Of course, we understand recently you have agreed to offer a guarantee for loans to ensure that Lot 3 and Lot 4 comes to realization. What difference do you think this project is currently making, but also will make upon its completion? Your take.
I think it's a fascinating example of cooperation. And it has already been a success, I would say, in many ways. Even if it has taken some years to finalize Lot 1 and 2, I think 5.5 million people have been taking the train during these 2 years that it's been open. Energy is run on hydropower and some gas, reducing CO2 emissions with 50%, around 50% for Tanzania. We also see that along the train, smaller communities of businesses are growing. So we can see everyday business people, small scales, are also being able to earn money for their life. So that is, I think the impact of the railway is from regional trade network is being facilitated by this, and down to more niche level, people selling whatever they are selling, So, and also for sustainability, for climate, etc. There's so many benefits. Traffic congestions, traffic accidents, and just the shorter time span now, the logistics, transporting goods from the northern part and soon maybe Uganda, etc., to the ports here is an enormous investment for Tanzania's economy, but also for its citizens, I would say. And our part, as you mentioned, we are the Swedish Export Credit Agency is supporting with export credit, which means it's like an insurance. If something would go wrong, then the Swedish Export Credit Agency, which is a state-owned organization, would guarantee the payments. And then there are Swedish companies also in the construction, but it's mainly Tanzanian owned and built. The know-how from 1 and 2 is now going to be applicable in 3 and 4. So I'm very happy about this project, as you hear.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear from you explaining how unique this project it is. Dr. Brevius Kayuza, I know you have spoken a lot, of course, regarding how things should move forward. Of course, not between Tanzania and Sweden alone, but also with other countries. As we're coming towards the end of the program, maybe people would like to hear from you, especially Swedish investors. Why should Swedish investors invest in Tanzania?
That's a good question. What we have learned in managing modern economy is that you need to build predictable systems for unpredictable events. And I think this I can, it may sound not ex cathedra, Terry is more informed than I do, but I think from the work I do, I understand that Tanzania is trying to build predictable systems for unpredictable issues, events, etc. And that is important for business. That's important for investments. That's important for capital movement. Capital is shy where systems are unpredictable. And Tanzania is doing that currently. And we are trying to do everything to make sure that this is the way. Number two, Tanzania is trying to capitalize on economic diplomacy and to making sure that what we call public-private partnerships, because we think that's our surest way of a nation to protect its strategic interests. And I think Swedish business people, company owners, will always find this place habitable in terms of public-private partnerships. And number three, that with all the challenges that we are having, we are trying, as a nation, we're trying so much, I think, to recalibrate whatever that has been ailing us for the last 60 years in terms of governance infrastructures. And some are through institutional strengthening, like the institution he's leading, to making sure that we will be, or we are having institutions that can not only help these people when they come into this country, but can assure them that there will be grounds for fair play whenever they operate in Tanzania. And I think these are critical milestones that this nation is making. Of course, there will be always challenges, but I think the way we are approaching these challenges, these investors will find it a good place to do business with us.
And I'm quite sure Her Excellency does agree on those explanations.
Yes.
And we hope that we will see more investors coming to Tanzania,
sure.
even from August 2026. Gideon, Terry, let's discuss about, of course, as Doctor has said earlier, we have seen a lot of changes, a lot of efforts by the Tanzanian government to ensure that we create a very, very conducive investment environment for investors locally and from other countries as well. What kind of feedback mechanism you have as an authority to ensure that whatever issue that actually comes up with investors is being dealt with very well and for mutual benefit for Tanzania, but also for the investors?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we have been a bit lucky within the business world is having Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan as president. One of the things that we credit her for is being an astute person that understands business and reacts whenever there are concerns and challenges within the investment community quite quickly. As I mentioned quite earlier in the interview, you know, the investment reforms that Her Excellency championed is the minute she came into office has driven up our investment portfolio from about 200 projects a year to about 900 projects for the past 2 years. We have moved from a $3 billion of FDI a year to $12 billion worth of FDI last year. And part of it is recalibrating. Again, as I mentioned, this is the third time we are changing our investment code in the last 6 years. And that's just the response. The first time in 2022, it was because it was an old investment code. The second time, it was to get the PPP opened up so that public and private sector can work together to implement projects. The third time is to merge TIC and EPZ and produce DSESA so that we can efficiently serve investors. We have seen the Tax Reform Commission that Her Excellency had formed to respond to tax challenges. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, if you look at the history of our country for the past 60 years, I think we have had one of the most reformist and business-friendly president of our lifetime. And this is something that we should also credit our friends from Nordic countries. I mean, I've worked in private sector development before, and the only partners that we were with all through that time has always been the Swedish government, the Norwegian government, the Finnish government, and the Danish government, helping us not only with TRA, with business environment reforms, with BEST programs and the rest of it. And these are the outcomes of the business environment that we have today. So it's not perfect, it's work in progress, but definitely significant strides of Her Excellency's administration. And we at DSESA, we have a one-stop facilitation center. We have desk officers responsible for individual countries and also collective of countries. We have a desk officer responsible for EU. So whenever there are these challenges, we have a conversation. And as Her Excellency mentioned, she was in our office 2 weeks ago to make sure that whenever there are issues, we can have FaceTime and we can address them, and we have those mechanisms. And we appreciate the confidence of the Swedish businesses to Tanzania's economy, and we expect for that to keep growing.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, of course, later on I'll give 1 minute as we're really coming towards the end of the program. I'll give 1 minute to each and every one of you, of course, in a sort of concluding our discussion today. But maybe Your Excellency, you've been in Tanzania for quite some time. I think you know about how Africa is moving forward as well. How do you envision Tanzania maybe in 50 years to come? We're embarking our Dira 2050 coming July this year. With all these efforts that we're putting in place, how do you envision
the relationship or Tanzania?
Tanzania in general, its dominance
Tanzania
in the region, in the
general,
continent, and
in
globally?
25 years. Well, I hope that Tanzania has graduated to become a middle-income country. That you continue to be a role model in the region for peace and stability. That the network of SGR and ports has developed so that the East African trade is really happening, because that will give employment to your beautiful, vibrant youth, young population you have. That's a huge asset you have here in Tanzania. And I also hope that you will be friends with all of us who wants to safeguard a world based on the rule-based world order. Because as Doctor mentioned, there are external shocks coming that we cannot predict. So I also foresee that we are going to partner in trying to stabilize the trade regime, climate, that we tackle climate change, etc. So being both a regional player and a global player, that's what I'm hoping for Tanzania. And of course, prosperity, that young people get, not only education, but also jobs. So I'm very confident that Tanzania continues on its trajectory of stable macroeconomic growth, your finances are in order, then that will pave the way. Of course, democracy is helpful. Peace and democracy goes hand in hand.
It's great to hear optimism, of course, from you. Now, let me give 1 minute for these two gentlemen in front of me. Let's start with Dr. Bravias Kauza. We're really coming towards the end of the program, so let's have 1 minute for each to sort of conclude our discussion today. I think pretty much it's gone beyond Tanzania and Sweden bilateral ties, but the way Tanzania is well positioned and strategically positioned as we're embarking to the 2050 coming July this year.
So I think number one, honestly, I say this from my heart, as once Margaret Thatcher told her members of the Conservative Party where things were boiling up, she said the lady is not turning back. And I think the president that we're having is not turning back in terms of doing what she's saying, building a better nation, not only for investment and business, but for the people. The main question we're asking ourselves here is, where are our people? And I think our partners will continue doing that. And I understand, Your Excellency, that Tanzania will remain being a friend to the rest of the world, because we only we know that the only way to get there is through other people. And lastly, I think it's important for all of us to embrace whatever that is happening in the region, because that's how the world operates, but on principles that safeguard our interests as nation states, but also as a peaceful world.
And now let's turn to the Director General of Tanzania Investments and Special Economic Zones Authority.
So I'd say 3 things. One, we are continuing on the reform path, and we hope that benefits not only Swedish investment in Tanzania, but also Tanzania's investors and those that wish to do business with Sweden. The second part is that this reform that Her Excellency is embarking on at the moment, I believe will make us, Tanzania, perhaps the largest economy in East Africa come 2030. The third part is that we have Dira 2050. So for the next 25 years, we're aiming to reach a $1 trillion economy. That's sort of our high ambition. And it is my hope that we still have Swedish metal in that part of the process, the same way we had it over the previous periods of reform and friendship for the last 60 years.
Great. Your Excellency, maybe you have anything to add. You concluded earlier, but if you have anything to add for 1 minute.
For 1 minute?
Yes.
Thank you for the conversation. I think it's wonderful to sit here and talk about 2050, actually, given the many years of development cooperation, knowing that Tanzania is in full speed forward to what we hoped for, you know? So I'm just very, you know, grateful to have been an ambassador for 4 years here. I'm leaving in August, and I've had fantastic experiences meeting intelligent people who are really driving the change of this country. So it's an honor. Thank you.
It's an honor, and of course, it's an honor as well to have 3 of you in the studio today, and our viewers as well on TBC1 and online as well, as we were actually putting it into the right perspective, Tanzania's bilateral relations with one of the European Union's key countries, and that is Sweden. The bilateral ties that started since 1961, things are about to change, and we just want things to work better for both countries. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and Your Excellency as well for being here today.
Thank you.
We had the Ambassador of Sweden to Tanzania, Her Excellency Charlotta Ozaki Masias. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
The Director General of Tanzania Investments and Special Economic Zones Authority, Giulia Diteri. Thank you very much, Director General, for being here with us today. And Dr. Bravius Kayoza, well-known economist as well. Thanks for your insight.
Thank you so much.
That's it from us. My name is Nasa Kingo. Catch us again next time, right here on TBC1.